Welcome to Newsmaker. I'm your host, Dawn Jones. June is a month when we celebrate fatherhood, but according to the U.S. Census Bureau, nearly 18 million American children, that's nearly 1 in 4, live without a biological step or adopted father in the home. And research indicates that the father's absence in the home affects children in numerous unfortunate ways. Today on Newsmaker, we welcome Terrence Wilson, an automotive industry executive and author of the new book, In Search of a Father, Achieving Your Rite of Passage on the Road to Manhood. And thank you so much, Terrence, for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to read the book. Thank you. And in the book, you talk about your childhood. You talk about your dad in the early days.
Yes.
He wasn't always absent.
Right.
And he was kind of your hero as a kid
Yes.
growing up. So give us a little bit about that period and that time in your life.
You know, first, thank you for inviting me on the show. I really appreciate you having me here today. When my father was in my life, one of the things that was so important to me was the time that we spent together. So he was in the Air Force, and because he was in the Air Force, he was in and out of the home. But when he came home, he made sure that he spent time with me and helped me to understand that I was valuable. And one of the things that happens with children is when they spend time with their parents, it helps them to understand that they're valuable and that their lives have value. Sometimes when children are pushed away by the parents, even unknowingly, but if they don't have time for the child, then that child feels like, well, why doesn't my mother, why doesn't my father want to spend time with me? Yeah. But my dad, whenever he would come home, he would make sure that he made most of the time there, and we would do everything together. We would play wrestling together. That was one of our favorite pastimes, and so I would be Hulk Hogan.
Back then.
I would be Hulk Hogan. He would be Andre the Giant, and so there were different things that we did. But just hanging together made me feel as a child, you know what? My life has value because he's interested in being with me.
And you mentioned in the book your dad was in the armed services. He was
Yes.
in the Air Force, and you and your sister were used to your dad coming and going. But it was something about the last time he left that
Yes.
you mentioned in the book was a little different. He told you, son, remember, I will always love you, or
Yes.
or something like that. And unbeknownst to you and your sister, there were things happening in the home that you weren't aware of. Did you know at that moment that would be the last time he would be a steady presence in your life?
Unfortunately, I didn't. And because of that, there were a lot of consequences in my life that I felt because of that. One of the things that happened was my father, he never allowed people to discipline me. Right, wrong, and different, but you know, because of that, my grandfather, when my father left, that was one of the things that he was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that you start acting right. And so I remember my grandfather one time telling me to do something, and I told him no. And when I told him no, he was like, well, listen, you know what, I'm gonna spank you this time. And I was like, you're not gonna do anything to me, because if you do that, my dad's gonna get you. And I'm speaking so bold, not knowing that my dad wasn't coming back. And so ultimately, that was my first spanking. And what ended up happening was that night, my mom actually told me that my father wasn't coming home, because I was upset, and I was like, that never happened to me before, and you just wait till my dad gets back. And so when my mom finally told me, she sat me down and my sister, and she said, your father's not coming home. And specifically, she looked at me and she said, and now you have to be the man of the house. And to tell a 5-year-old child that can be very devastating, because how am I supposed to be a man when right now all I want to do is play wrestling with my father?
With your dad, yeah.
Yeah.
There were pitfalls, consequences
Yes.
from your dad leaving the home when you were 5. Just briefly tell us about that. Some things that you think you may not have experienced if your dad was still in the home.
One of the things that I really remember about my dad not being there were all of the basketball games and all of the sports games, all of the recitals that he missed. They would have parents' night, and all of the fathers would escort their sons onto the court, and they would say the name of the father and they would say the name of the son. But when it came to me, as well as some other people, we had surrogates that would walk us out. And it was a little bit embarrassing. I remember growing up, and I remember talking with my friends, and one of the things that my friends would always do, my friends would always say, man, I did this with my father over the weekend, or I did that with my father over the weekend. And I didn't have those stories to tell them. And so I kind of shrunk back in shame because, you know, they're doing things with their dad that sounds so great. And here I am over the weekend, you know, I'm pulling weeds out of the garden. I got to cut, you know, mow the grass. I'm doing all these things that need to be done, but I'm not having fun with my father. I'm not in a situation where he's able to tell me in those quiet moments, son, this is who you are, and this is who you're supposed to become.
And you know, the book, you know, it really talks and speaks to fathers being important. But tell us how you reconnected with your dad. He wrote a memo that you published in this book, wrote the memo to you and you published it. How did you all reconnect?
It was probably when I was around 10 years old. My father called my mom, and again, he was in the Air Force, so it was kind of hard for us to keep track of where he was going. But he was in LA, and he called my mom, and we started to kind of reconnect that way. And my first question to him was, Dad, when are you coming home? Right? Because that was important to me. Just, you know, the fun that we had, the connection that I had with him was very, very pivotal. And when that connection was lost, I felt lost as a child.
Yeah. What's your relationship with your dad now?
So we keep in touch. Right now he lives in Atlanta, and I call him from time to time. He calls me. He just had a birthday on May 28th. So we keep in touch, and we're rebuilding that relationship. It's not necessarily the same relationship that I have with my mom, but we do love each other, and you know, we support each other. As you said, you know, he wrote a memo for the book. He read the book. And one of the things that I found out concerning my father was that what happened to me happened to him. And so one of the things—
hurt people.
Hurting people hurt people. So he began to go through it and read the book, and he began to see himself in me. He began to see how the hurts that he went through in life actually caused him to make certain decisions, and those decisions had an impact on my life.
Yeah. And so, you know, so you've reconnected, and the book is about fatherhood and the importance of fathers being present in their children's lives. Tell us why you believe that is your greatest role as a human, as a person, is being a present dad.
The reason why I believe that that is my greatest role is because as children, when children are born, they're born as empty vessels. And whatever you pour into them is what you're gonna get out. So if I have a cup and I pour into that cup Sprite, I shouldn't expect to drink Coke, right? Because whatever I pour in is what I'm gonna get out. And there's a connection between children and their parents. One of the things that you'll see with people who are adopted is a lot of times they struggle with the rejection in life. And the reason why they struggle with rejection is because the first people that are supposed to accept us and teach us who we are our parents. And if our parents aren't there to do that, then they have to find that from someone else. Right, wrong, indifferent, it may be someone who teaches them who they are, or it may be someone who pours into them the wrong thing. But because they're looking for acceptance, then they latch onto that person and they follow after them. There's a saying that the full person only desires a honeycomb, but to the person that is empty, every bitter thing tastes sweet. And so as a father, my job is to make sure that my children are full with everything that they need, so that when they get out into the world, they're not desiring these bitter things. They look at things and say, you know what? I deserve better than that. And because of that, I'm not going to settle for what this person is giving me or what life is trying to present to me. I'm going to wait until I am able to get what I really deserve.
Yeah, well, happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you.
Terrence Wilson, he is the author of the book In Search of a Father, Achieving Your Rite of Passage on the Road to Manhood. Where can people pick up this great book?
Well, they can go on Amazon and they can type in Search of a Father, Terrence Wilson, and they will be able to pick up a copy. They can also go to my website, twilsonspeaks.com, and they can find a link to where they can pick up a copy of the book there as well.
All right. It's been a pleasure to have you on Newsmaker. Thanks so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciated it.
Newsmaker will continue in just moments. Welcome back. In our second segment of Newsmaker, we take a closer look at the celebration known as Juneteenth. It is one of the oldest known celebrations of the emancipation of Black people who had been enslaved in the United States. Some call it Freedom Day or Jubilee Day or Liberation Day. It was on June 19, 1865, that a Union general rode into Galveston, Texas, to announce that the Civil War had ended and slaves had been freed. Celebrations take place all over the country to commemorate Juneteenth. Back in 2021, we talked to Ehil Deloney here on Newsmaker. She was a longtime civil rights activist in mid-Michigan and one of the first organizers of Juneteenth celebrations in the city of Flint. She won't be here for this year's celebration. She passed away last month. Here's a portion of that interview we did with her 3 years ago when she shared her passion for Juneteenth. And thank you for joining us, Ms. Deloney.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
And let's first just go back to the early days of the Juneteenth celebration in mid-Michigan. And, you know, many people at that time, did they really understand the purpose of the celebration?
Not really. Actually, the National Association of Black Social Workers Flint chapter was organized in 1969, and we made a master plan for the African Americans for the city of Flint. And one of the top ideas that we presented to the city openly was the Juneteenth celebration. We wanted to know and wanted them to know of our history, and we wanted to demonstrate it. So when we first started, it was relatively small, but it grew and has grown, especially when we had the 290,000 people in the Genesee County in Flint, Michigan. On that day, you could not hardly get downtown as it relates to by the Hyatt Hotel when it got here, because it started before we got that. And then we introduced that not only to the grown-ups, we started what we call our Freedom School. And we reared our children knowing their history starting back from the time of historical experience. We started them was talking with them about I know me, I accept me, I love me, I forgive me. A higher power lives within me. And we drilled that in them. And they would march in the parade. In fact, a couple of years ago, after we lost so many people, the parade wasn't as big. At one time, it was the largest parade in the state of Michigan, but everybody cooperated with it. And we have been doing it since the 70s until now. We started our practice and getting everything together in January and February. Then we started meeting in last of February and March. And so right now we have our plans and we're ready to go. I say one thing we have to do, and I want to emphasize that, is bring the children up. We got children now who can take my place, and Mr. Robinson is taking my place, and other young people, that we try to identify them and let them know that each and every one of them is the greatest miracle in the world. And we have them say it to themselves, looking in their eyes. And so when they get ready to talk, when they get older, they know whose they are, and they love and know themselves.
That was Ehil Deloney. She passed away in May, one of the first organizers of Juneteenth here in mid-Michigan. And, you know, she was talking about Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Robinson is Dewan.
Yes, ma'am.
Robinson,
yes, ma'am.
Who she has passed her torch to
yes.
carry out her mission of Juneteenth. You know, it's kind of emotional for me even
Very
listening
much.
back to her and her words and how she always empowered people and encouraged people. Tell us about your relationship with Ehil Deloney.
Yes, mother is my African grandmother. So, I've never met a woman who had the most profound love for herself first and foremost, then the culture she represented, and just people, right? And I spent time and time with her, educating about Juneteenth, but just educating about life. And like for me, it's been a wonderful, mentor-mentee relationship, one that I would cherish for life. I can still feel her now. Everything that she taught us, from I know me, I accept me, I love me, I forgive me, it's a higher power that lives within me. It was a special spirit that she carried. That is a big void that this community is missing, not even just for Flint, but for the world. Like, she meant so much to so many people. She done touched lives, she done gave so much. She said so many times that she could have been a millionaire, but she gave everything that she had for the betterment of people. You don't find that too often.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so when you talk about people like Harriet Tubman's, she is our Harriet Tubman of today, right? And so I love her to life.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And 52 years ago, as I said,
Yes,
she started this Juneteenth
Yes.
mission here in Genesee County, and you've traveled extensely with her,
Yes.
out of the
Yes.
country, and so you really knew her heart.
I knew her, and she shared a lot of wisdom and information with me, right? As you said, we've traveled to Haiti together multiple times. We traveled to Egypt, Mexico. We traveled all around the States. Just spending time with her, sitting down and eating. I ran a lot of errands for her. Whatever
Yeah.
she needed, I definitely wanted to make sure I took care of her. But that's how young people should take care of our elders. And so that's how elders should be, empowering the young people. And as she said before, one day she was going to pass away. And selfishly, you want people to stay here forever.
We do.
We do, right?
We do.
But unfortunately, that happens. But what she did was prepare me to be in these positions to do the work today. And she didn't want folks to be sad about it. She didn't want you to cry about it. She didn't want you to be hurt. The way that you honored her was continuing on doing the work. And so that's what I'm dedicated to do.
Yeah. And it doesn't end with Juneteenth, but it begins kind of
That's
with
right.
Juneteenth.
That's right.
This
Yes,
year's Juneteenth celebration. It started the first of the month,
Yes.
and it continues through to the 19th.
Yes.
So before we get to our next segment where we really get into some of the activities, what is it that she wanted the community to know about Juneteenth and about our history?
She wanted you to know yourself. She wanted you to love yourself. As you said, she started this with the Black social workers 52 years ago. And the point of it was to be able to educate. A lot of times, at times, Black people are hindered from education, so you don't necessarily know yourself. But when you know yourself and you love yourself, then you value yourself. So people have this type of harmonious feeling about one another. When you love yourself, then you can love others.
Yeah.
You can care for others. And Juneteenth is a piece for it. It's a stepping ground for us to really be able to be unified, understand our history in America. And then first and foremost, our history didn't start in slavery.
Yeah.
Like, we have to know that. We have to teach our people about that. We come from a lineage of historical kings and queens and great high priests, legendary folks, historical, iconic people. And so we have to relish that, and we have to garner up that spirit. But then we have to continue to do the work in today's time. And when she created these initiatives, around like Juneteenth and Kwanzaa, it was all about self-love, Black love. And I love seeing the nation celebrate Juneteenth. Every time I see it and everybody talk about it, some people may just now learning about it, right? You have adults who never knew about Juneteenth.
Right.
But now it's a national holiday. Now people are practicing more than just celebrating. We are educating. We are doing true liberation of ourselves. So Mother knew exactly what she was doing when she established these Juneteenth initiatives. But to see the impact now, I know that she is super proud of the efforts.
Yeah, and her legacy will definitely live on.
Oh, of course.
Definitely
of course,
live on.
Of course. And I do want to say, it's a big shoes to fill. She left some big shoes behind. And it is going to take everybody, all of us coming together, being genuine about our efforts, really making sure that we stand together and we have changed the circumstances of our lives forever.
Yeah, for generations to come.
For generations to come.
We're going to continue our conversation with DeJuan Robinson in our next and final segment. We talk about what's being planned for the 52nd annual traditional Juneteenth celebration here in Mid-Michigan. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are with DeJuan Robinson, the organizer of the traditional Juneteenth celebration in Flint and Genesee County. It already started on June 1st, and he's here to tell us all about what's being planned for this year's celebration. It's the 52nd annual Juneteenth celebration. So, DeJuan, what's being planned this year?
So we have a series of different events. We started on June 1st with the St. John's. We went to the historical area, which 475 took the highway right through the historical black neighborhood. But we are at all city parks. We'll be at different spots around the city. Like you said, we have this weekend activity coming up. Well, we have, of course, the rodeo, then we have the Juneteenth kickoff, then of course we have Saints in Spirit, then we'll have Healing Circle, because we all need healing.
Right.
And then we'll kick off next week. Every day we have different events, war stories. We have the Southside City of Hope. We'll be at the Brennan Center. And of course, we have at the McCree Theater, the Black Lives Matter special, which will be facilitated none other than our chair, Brother Hubert Naeem Roberts. Right? Big shout out to that brother too, man, for holding it down and doing great things. That's legendary, brother too. And then we'll be going to the Sloan. I want to thank Sloan for being a phenomenal partner for the past 4 years. They have been great for helping and supporting and executing Juneteenth. Then, of course, we'll be having financial literacy. We'll be talking about legacy and literacy. And then our big day, which is our humongous day, June 19th. Juneteenth, we'll be at Max Brandon Park for the first half from 12 to 5, which we'll have the parade. Now, the parade is historic. Please get out there and get ready for the parade.
A lot is planned for Juneteenth. You can find the information on Traditional Juneteenth on Facebook. Thank you, DeJuan, and thank you for watching.